Buenas. Good afternoon, buenas tardes, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for being here today. It's a pleasure to have you all here with us. This is, if you're here for the Select Committee on California-Mexico Cooperation, you're in the right place. So thank you for coming. This committee was created to address important issues surrounding California collaboration with Mexico. And I always like to begin by reminding people that here in California, we're very proud of our diversity, and we're very proud of our immigrant community, and we're also very proud of our relationship with Mexico. We think more can be done and more needs to be done to create stronger ties with Mexico and a better relationship with Mexico. We depend on each other for so much that much can be done to improve our respective communities by working together. Today, the focus of this hearing is to discuss students we share, expanding educational opportunities for transborder students, and the different opportunities we create by maximizing our resources and working together. Education, as everyone knows, universally, is extremely important on every level. If we talk about improving our system of government, education is essential. If we talk about improving our economy, education is always essential. So having this discussion around the subject of education is essential in making sure that our communities prosper together. I am honored to have, we have other committees going on, and we have some of our members in those committees, and they will join us shortly. But today we also have Assemblymember Jose Medina, who chairs the Select Committee on California-Mexico Affairs and the Assembly side, and thank you for being here today. Your presence is very important on this issue, and Assemblymember Jose Medina also happens to be an educator, so that lends an additional level to this discussion. Thank you for being here. And I want to ask if you want to make any comments.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you for bringing us together here this afternoon to talk about a very important topic, a topic that, along with Senator Hueso, I have spent time discussing both here and in Mexico with some of the participants here in the panel today. And so it is something that I think that we've been working on for several years now, and certainly something very important. As the Senator said, I was a high school teacher who taught many of the students that we are talking about here today. I taught the students who first came to California in the high school, and it's something that I know we both on this side of the Mexican border are concerned about, and as well as the Mexican government. So, as the Senator said, look forward to continuing to work together, and I look forward to hearing the research and the expertise from many of the panelists. So, very happy to be here with you today.
Thank you. I also want to give a warm welcome to Consul General Liliana Ferrer, who is here representing Mexico in Sacramento, and she is no stranger to Mexico's interests abroad, having been raised in a family of advocates for Mexico. And she has been a wonderful advocate for the immigrant community here in California, and she's been an instrumental partner in facilitating an important binational discussion. And I want to welcome her and thank you for all your support. Thank you for all the efforts you have lent to the legislature, not only educating us, but helping us to facilitate these important dialogues at a community level. And I just wanted to ask if you wanted to make any comments.
Thank you so much, Senator Hueso. Well, first of all, I do not get tired of repeating what a great honor and privilege it is for me to serve as Foreign Service Officer in Sacramento, California at times like these, like the ones that we're living in today. So first of all, thank you for your leadership and for your partnership and your friendship with Mexico and the Mexican people. Thank, obviously, Senator Medina as well for his work in education, as well as Senator Allen for being also such a wonderful friend of Mexico. But with that, also recognize the wonderful work that Superintendent Torlakson has done in the presence of Tom Adams. Tell you that we're very, very happy and honored to have Dr. Benito Miron, who is the Director for International Affairs of the Secretary of Education of Mexico, and obviously also very happy that we have an important group of speakers that are here with us that have flown in from Mexico that will be sharing important information with us regarding binational education and the collaboration that we engage in day to day. As we all know, and as you have said, Mexico and California work together in this very important subject, a priority subject. We believe at the consulate that through education, that is the best way to empower our people. So the efforts that we engage in this regard are crucial. At times like these. We work very closely in a whole number of subjects: renewable energy, climate change, business, health, etc. And we are here today, and later on in the afternoon, we will be signing a memorandum of understanding, California and Mexico, and how to increase this collaboration. We are focused particularly on DACA and Dreamers today, but we don't only stop at that. We engage with higher education and graduate work and research, and we are forward-looking and look towards the future, for a better future for both countries. So I very much look forward to hearing all the presentations today from our important guests. And once again, Senator Hueso, thank you for hosting us, and thank you for being such an incredible partner in today, Advocacy Day, which is the most important political forum for Mexico and California that we have in Sacramento. Obviously, my team is crucial. Yuriko and Lidia have done a wonderful job, and the rest of the consulate, without whom I would not be able to do the work that I do here. So very, very much appreciate their support as well. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you very much, and I'm also very proud to have within part of this committee. As a member, we also have the very influential chairman of the Education Committee, and appropriately, he represents LA County, one of the counties with the highest Mexican population outside of Mexico, and he also happens to be very bilingual. And I wanted to ask Senator Allen if you want to make any comments.
Well, I've been serving on this committee since I got into the Senate, and I have appreciated it a great deal. I'm really excited to have us discussing a topic near and dear to my heart, which is education, and this whole question about the students that we share. A number of us had the opportunity to travel to El DF back in 2016, and we went to the UC Center there, and they were presenting some of the initial findings of this project, and now it's great to have an opportunity for us to do a little seguimiento and see what's been happening. I got a chance to meet with some of the students from UC San Diego who came to my office a little earlier to talk about some of the continuing research, and we're very interested in this issue. We're certainly looking for ways that we can help assist with all of our families that keep going back and forth. I mean, what's so funny for all of us here in California is just how the rhetoric in Washington is just so off base when compared to the lived experience of all of us who, of every background in the state of California. And so we're moving forward with this incredibly crucial partnership. And this area of education is one that a lot of people don't have any understanding of or thought about. But there is there's a fact that we have lots and lots of our young people on both sides of the border moving back and forth. In some cases, there have been deportations. In other cases, they literally just travel back and forth every single day to go to school or to work. And so it's part of our job to make sure that we're doing everything we can to make this educational infrastructure that we both share in both countries work. And so I'm excited to be here, and I'm very interested in the discussions. I always like the energy discussions, but I'm going to be particularly interested in the education discussions. So.
Thank you. And we're also very pleased to have with us Dr. Thomas Adams. He's the Deputy Director for the California Department of Education. And I'd like to ask if you can make some brief comments about the work you're doing in these areas.
Yes, thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here, and it's an honor to represent Superintendent Torlakson. And just while I get to present here on a few slides, I want you to know that it's also due to the collective efforts of all my colleagues at the Department of Ed, as well as throughout the state of California. I think the important thing here is that, as Senator Allen mentioned, the idea of California students going over to Mexico and coming back and forth is nothing new in our state's history. It's as long as the state has been around. What is new, though, is the number of students who are residing in Mexico. And I had the honor of accompanying Superintendent Torlakson when he went to Tijuana in December. We were able to go and see some of our students in Mexican schools and just to see how they were doing, and he even made some very personal connections with those students. And in fact, he's now corresponding with them. Just a quick reminder on where we are in California. We have 6.2 million students. That's more than some states have in total population. We have 10,000 local schools, 1.3 million English learners, 90,000 migrant students, and 83% of the 1.3 million English learners are Spanish speakers, majority of them of Mexican descent. What we are grateful for in the department is the amount of legislative support we've gotten, especially in the idea that we are treating our English learners and their multilingualism as an asset, not as a liability. And that's important, especially with the passage of Prop 58. We now can actually see them as the great untapped reserve of moving forward in multilingualism. Just a few highlights of policy initiatives. We have the creation of the English language arts in terms of Common Core, but what California did that was unique, we translated those standards into Spanish and made them appropriate for Spanish. We also adopted instructional materials that were based on the Common Core in Espanol, so we have textbooks in our classrooms K through 8 that actually that are appropriate for Spanish speakers. We've done the EL roadmap. This has been an important development, this document here, in terms of projecting out where California wants to take its English learners and how it's an innovative document. I'm happy to leave you with a copy of that. And then I also just want to mention the seal of biliteracy. When it started out as a small idea, a small seed of multilingualism that has grown to now where over 170,000 students have been awarded the seal of biliteracy. And in terms of full disclosure, I have to admit my daughter will be receiving that, so I am benefiting from that program. So it's definitely a great thing, and just to let you know, when it came to her college choice, she wanted to make sure that Spanish was spoken on campus. Of course, we couldn't get this done without all the great partners in this. It's definitely, so many people along the way have helped us, and we've reached out to them. And I think we've bridged a lot of differences. And while I could go into all the different things that we are doing, I think what has changed is the tone of the conversation has changed because of Superintendent Torlakson. And he's always celebrating diversity. He calls it the California way. So if you would allow me to speak in Spanish. Please excuse my gringo accent. But let me just say this. Celebramos diversidad porque nos trae amor y belleza. We celebrate diversity because it brings us love and beauty. And that's what we want for our future. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Today's hearing will consist of two panels, and they're on your agenda. The first one is addressing the educational needs of U.S.-born children in Mexico schools, and the next would be higher ed, going beyond dual degree and foreign exchange programs, creating opportunities for bilingual and bicultural students. and we'll ask our first panelist to come forward. And our first one will be Dr. Benito Miron Lopez. Dr. Benito Miron Lopez is the General Director of International Affairs for the Mexican Ministry of Education. In his role as General Director of International Affairs, Dr. Lopez works with different institutions to facilitate educational partnerships. He is a lawyer with a master's degree in political communication and a doctorate degree in political science. Previously, he earned a consultant to the Mexican Senate and as an academic in Spain, Great Britain, and Mexico. Dr. Lopez, where are you? There you are, okay. Did you want to present from there?
If it's possible, yes.
Yes, okay, that's fine.
Thank you very much, Senator Hueso. It's a great privilege to be here with you today. It's a great pleasure to be in Sacramento, the beautiful capital of the great state of California. California, as you know, is one of our main allies so that the migrant population can continue their education. Under the current socio-political circumstances, the Mexican government, through the Ministry of Education, has making lots of efforts to attend the migrant population. Most of it concentrates in the great state of California. Your support is and will stay vital so that we can together provide them with better opportunities. This is why I would like to share with you, honorable members of the Senate and Assembly, three main topics. The first one, I will refer to every action that the Ministry of Education has taken to ensure the right of education to anyone coming to Mexico, Mexicans or US-born. Then I'll speak about what we're doing for all the Mexicans here in the United States. And finally, I would like to share with you some general aspects. For those ones coming to Mexico, without a doubt, Mexico understands that the right of education is about any sort of bureaucratic procedure. To ensure that every migrant that arrives to Mexico has equality of conditions to access the national education system, we have implemented the following actions. First, anyone who enters our country will find an education attention center on any of the 11 official repatriation points. In these education attention centers, they will receive information for two purposes. In case they want to join education system, or in case they want to join the labor force. If they want to study, useful information will be handed to them. If they want to find a job, we will provide them information to certify their job competencies in Mexico. For those interested in accessing the education system, let me share with you that we have simplified the procedures to come to the national education system. We eliminated the apostille. We know that many of those who return to Mexico do it without the apostille in their identity or academic documents. That prevented them from obtaining revalidation of their studies done in the United States. The Ministry of Education, therefore, does not longer require the apostille to obtain revalidation. Second, they can translate their own documents. They no longer need to pay for an expert to do it. In basic and upper secondary education, there is no need to exhibit any kind of document. They only need to make a written statement and they will be enrolled to the educational system. And listening to the needs of those coming from the United States, we are recognizing now the GED so that these students can come to the higher education programs directly when they come to Mexico. Now, if they're not looking to pursue their studies in Mexico, but to find a job, the ministry is promoting a labor competency certification policy for migrants. This will allow them to improve their living and working conditions, preventing them from being inserted in labor sectors far from their skills and abilities. For those ones who live and decide to stay here in the United States, we have made it easier to obtain basic education certificates for all. The Ministry of Education is strengthening the education services in the United States to our fellow citizens through 302 community plazas located in 38 out of 50 states of the American Union, which, by the way, 25% of them are here in California. These plazas play a very important role in three ways: literacy, certification of their studies, and access to books. In these plazas, our fellow citizens have access to teachers and educational material so that they can finish and certify their primary and secondary education. Also, with a simple written request, they can obtain free textbooks for their children or students. These are donated by the Ministry of Education every year, and every year we send around 5,000 collections of books, which that means 250,000 books to the United States. Also, we have established the educational guidance window, which operates in all consulates of Mexico and the United States. These windows offer information and advice to migrants about the educational programs and services that they can access regardless of the immigration status. Within the framework of this program, yesterday in Chicago, we formally installed the first binational week of education, along with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The first edition of the Binational Education Week is a joint effort made between the Mexican government, along with community organizations and volunteers, to disseminate the educational offers both in Mexico and the United States. It will be held in all 50 consulates of Mexico located in the United States of America. We will have workshops, fairs, and conferences. Through them, we want Mexicans to have a direct contact with different institutions so that they get to know their educational offers and services, the available resources, and any other helpful information. We have established a support office for migrants. It is coordinated from my own office, and through it, we spread information about educational services and made programs offered through the website Mexterior, and also to from the Mexterior telephone line. On this webpage, you can find educational options such as Prepa Online, which is an innovative, flexible, and free project that is taught both in Mexico and the United States and has official validity throughout the Mexican Republic. Its objective is to offer online baccalaureate studies to people who, due to social, economic, work, or other needs, cannot attend the face-to-face courses. It is taught through an online educational model that allows a high terminal efficiency. The distance education in Mexico is led by the Mexican National Open University, which offers 22 degrees from tourism, business administration, to telematics, software development, renewable energy, or environmental technology, and 19 higher technical university programs. Our students of the Open University say that the best thing is not to have schedules, to work and study freely, and even to have exchanges to other countries. Now, for the record, I would like to say that not everything is in response to the current political situation. The bilateral relationship between Mexico and the United States, particularly with California, is an old relationship, which has been productive and fruitful, closely linked with various cooperation programs in education that promote and enrich social, educational, and professional development of the migrant population. A clear example of this is the Binational Migrant Education Program, which was born from the close relationship that Mexico has always had with the state of California. Today, it is a strategy that allows us to address the educational problems of migrant population of both countries. PROVEM consists of a summer exchange of teachers that comes to the United States. During the last year, half of them came to California, while the rest attended to 9 other states. Another one is the visiting teacher programs, which allows bilingual Mexican teachers to come to your schools here in the US for 1 to 3 years. They help in schools with high percentage of Mexican children. This program has a very meaningful social impact because it allows to have better teaching learning processes. The students show more interest in history, culture, values, and national traditions that strengthen their self-esteem and thereby national identity. We also have within the framework of the Bilateral Forum on Higher Education, Research, and Innovation, the 100,000 Strongs in the Americas. It seeks to increase academic mobility between Mexico and the United States. Its objective by 2018, this year, is to achieve 100,000 Mexicans studying in the United States and 50,000 Americans study in Mexico. In 2016, we granted 64,000 scholarships to come to the United States. As you can see, we have always believed that through international cooperation, we can build a better future for the children on both sides of the border. In this sense, later today, as you commented previously, the Ministry of Education and the California Education Department will sign a memorandum of understanding which will allow us to continue developing activities that contribute to the growth of students and teachers from basic to higher education. The Ministry of Education is putting all efforts to make our educational system a flexible one, so that everyone who has the will to continue studying can do so. We want those who come or return to Mexico for whatever reason to know that we will receive them with pleasure. We are all immigrants. We move from one neighborhood to another one, from one town to another, from one country to a neighbor country. Both Mexico and the United States are an extremely solid mixture of migrants. We just need to think about our ancestors to find at least one migrant in our own families. Migrants are courageous people with vision of overcoming and with an indomitable spirit. The paths traveled were different, but the visions were clear, a better future. They arrive at their destination with a combination of courage, hard work, and union among adversity. This is why now, more than ever, the collaboration between California and Mexico is vital. I have shared with you all the efforts that we have been making back home to provide access to education for those who want to come to Mexico. But California has a key role to play right now. I know you're doing your part, but there's still a long mile to walk together. We see in you a valuable ally in the eve of a breaking point. You may lean the scale. The more we stand together, the more we will mutually benefit. Your roots are deep down, our roots too. Let's not forget that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Lopez. Well deserved. Our next presentation will be a joint presentation by Ms. Yara Amparo Lopez and Ms. John Gustafson Correa. Ms. Lopez is a published education consultant with 14 years of experience in programs related to migrant education. She is currently serving as the Binational Education Program Coordinator for the state of Baja California. Ms. Gustafson Correa is Chief Executive Officer of CABE, the California Association for Bilingual Education. Jen has over 30 years of experience working in the field of education with great emphasis on working in multilingual and culturally diverse settings. Jen is bilingual, biliterate in English and Spanish, and holds a master's degree in elementary education with a focus on bilingual and multicultural education. Welcome, Ms. Lopez. And Ms. Gustafson, you have 15 minutes for your presentation.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, and we start talking about, thank you. The Baja California, it's a state they receive, and they have many students, and they have many opportunities to work together with California and other states in Baja California and the United States. So we have international school mobility, we have a teacher exchange training, educational and cultural supports and collaboration agreements, principal with CABE. And this is the areas we do right now. In Baja California, we have more 50,000 students. He's born in US and now is enrolled in Baja California. Many that students is in the level K9 or basic students in Mexico, and the school continued the schools in Mexico, and then he's coming to US and he's enrolled, he's back and forth all the time. We have more than 3,000 students is enrolled year per year. Is coming when the cycle or the year school is starting, then it's coming 3,000 more students per year in Baja California. In the last 3 years, we're working with CABE in a project, a special project is GLAD. And this project is certificates teachers to show how working with the students learning Spanish and learning in English. So that is very, very important for us because it's a supporting bilingual teaching and understanding the immigration experience of the students and building bridge between educators in both countries to impact the students' learning. And we have the promotion for academic and cultural support strategies with the Center for U.S.-Mexico Students. And now we want to do some project for Belated Cecile in Baja California. It's the first time we can do something like that in Baja California with the students is born in U.S. and coming back from U.S. and Mexico. So thank you for the support. And we are developing a curriculum for oriented to the needs for students which are for a teacher's credentials. And we're working with CABE and San Diego State and Universidad for California. This is the teachers working together in Baja California. This is the space, you can see that pictures, is the teacher working for US and Baja California in the Baja California with the GLAD program. So this is the children's is working in the school in Tijuana with the program GLAD. So we have the same program and with the teachers in US and when the teachers is in Baja California. And I want to show you this map. This map is the students we can find in all the public schools in Baja California. If you see that points, red points, it's elementary school. The yellow point, it's middle school. So that's the dispersion for the students in Baja California. So we need to work with all the schools, not just one area, because we have the 1 to 6 students per school is coming back. So the goals for Baja California, it's very, very huge. And this is the Binational Teacher Program. The goal is it's form teachers with knowledge for bilingual, but knowledge by bicultural teachers. And this is the collaboration we have. System Education and US, San Diego State University for make the curricula and the estancia, and UCSD for evaluation for the program. We're making a nueva generación, and I want to say in Spanish, because this is the goal. Estamos formando una nueva generación binacional, porque no solo son los estudiantes que regresan. En Baja California tenemos a los estudiantes estadounidenses que van a venir hacia Estados Unidos en un momento de su vida. So we're working with another group for students, just not the migrant. And the system education, we're working with the 54,000 students, and the Normales is for school for teaching credentials in Baja, and UPN is the University, National Pedagogical University. So this is the work in Baja California. Please.
Thank you, Amparo. Good afternoon. As stated before, I'm Jan Gasasin Correa, the Chief Executive Officer of CABE, the California Association for Bilingual Education, and I'm honored to be joined at the table today with Dr. Cristina Alfaro, a member of our CABE Board of Directors, and from the team at San Diego State, who will also be sharing with us in the presentation. What an honor, qué honor, ¿verdad? To be here participating in this hearing today, knowing that we have the same vision, the same passion to serve our students, and to showcase the rich and growing binational relationship that CABE has had and is forming over the last several years with educational colleagues and programs in Mexico. ¿Me prestas el borradito? So you may have heard of CABE. We were founded as a nonprofit organization 43 years ago, and over the past 4 decades, our mission has stayed true to the vision of biliteracy, educational equity, and 21st century success for all students, and particularly for English learners and immigrant students, many being the students that we share cross-border between Mexico and California. And if I may add, Assemblymember Medina is one of our more recent CABE members. He's actually my Assembly member from Riverside, California, and recently joined the CABE Riverside chapter. So thank you, Assemblymember, for that sponsorship as well. Gracias. So while CABE is comprised of a 14-member board of directors and over 40 staff members, I'm pleased and honored to be accompanied here today by different members of our team. And so in the audience, if folks would maybe just indicate raising their hand, we have our CABE board president and the newly appointed associate superintendent of Woodland Unified, Elodia Ortega-Lampkin. Our CABE lobbyist, many of you may know her, Martha Zaragoza Diaz. Our consultant for strategic partnerships binationally, Jose Enrique Gonzalez. And as I mentioned earlier, Dr. Cristina Alfaro from our CABE Board of Directors and San Diego State University as well. It is truly a team effort. One main aspect of CABE's work is to provide professional development and support for teachers, administrators, and parents, particularly in the new multilingual era of Proposition 58 and the guidance of the new English Urban Roadmap, as Dr. Adams mentioned earlier. And as we focus on those areas, the following needs have been identified by CABE to support multilingual biliteracy education in California. These areas include implementing and growing bilingual biliteracy programs in our schools throughout the state, supporting teachers' gain and maintenance of high levels of academic Spanish for instruction, addressing the bilingual teacher shortage and supporting more bilingually authorized teachers with deep understanding of binational issues that our students and families face daily, and supporting our parents, understanding the differences in the educational systems cross-border, providing social and emotional help and support for students and parents, and continuing education resources for both students and adults regarding the immigration experience. And so, in part, to address these needs, we began our journey several years ago to build connections and relationships with colleagues and programs in Mexico, particularly in Baja California, particularly with the Sistema Educativo Estatal and the Institute of Mexicans Abroad, IME, supported or based in Mexico City, to better serve the students and the students that we share on both sides of the border. And I really want to truly emphasize now the building of relationships. In order to gain trust, share knowledge, develop respect, and build connections. Both formal and informal relationships have been built to continue our service for our students on both sides of the border. And the images you'll see are images of that cross-border relationship building. While CABE has led and participated in many cross-border trips to Baja California and Mexico City, a recent one that stands out has historical context to it. It occurred, as Dr. Adams mentioned, last December when CABE led a delegation to Tijuana. And the top educational leaders from California, Baja California, our Superintendent, Tom Torlakson, and Secretary of Education, Miguel Angel Mendoza, and their teams met for what we believe may have been the first time that the two top educational leaders in at least recent history, have met and connected directly on the current and growing needs of our students, their families, and the educators who serve them. And it truly was a monumental moment in cross-border relations and work. So based on our shared needs, our strong foundation and partnership, CABE has been proud to continue partnering with IME and the Sistema Educativo Estatal de Baja California, along with the California Department of Ed, UC Mexico, San Diego State, and the University of California, San Diego. And there's several projects that we're working on. We have a strong partnership with IME and recently signed an MOU agreement to also work in partnership and support the consulates throughout California, the 14 Mexican consulates. CABE has a partnership to actually provide professional development support to those offices to serve the families that they serve on a daily basis. Yara mentioned our professional development and our exciting program of professional development cross-border. We'll be hosting 30 teachers, 60 teachers in total from Baja California and from California this July in Tijuana. And they'll be conducting and being part of the Binational GLAD program and building cross-cultural connections between educators on both sides of the border. CABE also works with the Plaza Comunitaria program, and we provide trainer-trainer models, and we prioritize presentations and representation by our partners in Mexico at our different conferences. Tomorrow, there'll be one in Riverside with over 1,000 attendees, and we'll have representation from the Consul in San Bernardino, as well as from the Sistema Educativo Estatal. And additionally, CABE provides support around immigration and safe haven school resources for parents and educators. And finally, I'd like to just share that we've participated in powerful partnerships of bilingual and binational teacher education programs with partner universities, a program we've called Formadores Docentes, and I'd like to invite Dr. Cristina Faro to speak to a few components of this program. Cristina?
So yes, I have the honor and the privilege of working with all of these different organizations, and I think as Jan mentioned before, it is all about relationships and it's about collaboration. So I just want to reiterate that this is a collaboration between governments, between institutions of higher education, nonprofit organizations, and binational communities. And one of the most important thing I think that I'm very happy to be part of is that we're engaging in work that goes deeper into some of the work that we previously have engaged in international education and binational education. So we're kind of setting a foundation from the work that has been done before, but now the aim that's really important is to aim for sustainability, not programs that come and go. And this is why the focus now is to really work with the preparation of los formadores de docentes, teacher educators on both sides of the border. So right now, the partnership as it stands is California Department of Education, CDE, University of California Office of the President, CABE, San Diego State University, UCSD, and then in Baja California, we have C, el Sistema Educativo Estatal, Secretaría de Educación Pública, SEP, and Normales de Baja California, and Universidad Pedagógica Nacional. So in order for this to work, this is all the entities coming together to create this work. So what are the urgent goals? Right now, the urgent goals are to prepare bilingual and binational teachers that have the self-efficacy to work with the students that we share. And in order to do this, we are currently developing a program, a curriculum to prepare binational bilingual teachers at San Diego State University, and we're going to be implementing it, but we're also working with UCSD in this process, and of course with the UPN and with the Normales. So the process is going to be that we're developing this curriculum right now. Summer's going to be very intense for us. And we're going to, the plan is to pilot this curriculum in fall 2018. So we are going to also be making sure that we document and evaluate this process, because the ultimate goal, of course, is to be able to submit this curriculum to CDE as well as SEP and C, for the possibility of disseminating to other geographic areas, that both in California and in Mexico, that have students that we share, that have to meet the needs of the students that we share. So our current work right now, it has started out with just looking at understanding the assets and the challenges of the students that we share, before we can begin to develop this curriculum, before we say, what do teachers need to know and do well to work with students that we share. So one of the first things that we've engaged in as far as our work together is looking at what are the knowledge, skills, and dispositions that teachers of students on both sides need to have. And then also looking at what does this binational, bilingual curriculum look like, And again, as I said, and then we're going to implement it in the fall. And by January 2018, we hope to have a report of this pilot program for dissemination. And I don't know, is my time up? So basically, that's where we're at, and just wanted to have the privilege of sharing that.
Thank you for
Can I just say in closing, it just really has been an honor, and one of my colleagues used the expression earlier, this is really boots on the ground work. This is work we're doing on a daily basis that's practical, that's purposeful, and that's passionate to truly meet the needs of our students that we serve on both sides of the border. And thanks so much for giving us an opportunity to share that with you. And we welcome you to be part of any of our exchanges that we have in the upcoming future. Thanks so much.
Thank you. We'd love that. Thank you to all three of you. Our next speaker is Dr. Eunice Vargas. Dr. Vargas is a published academic and a lead research professor at El Colegio de la Frontera Norte. Dr. Vargas has a doctorate in sociology with an emphasis in demographics. She focuses her research on children and youth. Currently, she is working on U.S.-born migrant student integration in Baja California and Jalisco. Welcome, Dr. Vargas, and you have 10 minutes.
Good evening. Well, my name is Eunice Vargas, and I work as a professor and researcher at El Colegio de la Frontera Norte. Thanks, Senator Hueso, for this invitation. Well, in this presentation, I plan to show you some of the recent results from a survey on migration and school integration of transnational students in the Tijuana metropolitan area, including Tecate and Rosarito, which was conducted in collaboration with Proven in 2017. Well, first, I have to say that from 2010 to 2015, Baja California had the highest rate of migrant children aged 5 to 17 coming from the US. And within Baja, the highest rates were found in the Tijuana metropolitan area. According to the census survey, we receive in Baja about 10,000 minors from the US, 8.5% of the total minors that arrived from this country to Mexico in this period. Therefore, we decided to analyze the situation of the children that had lived and studied in the US, who were defined as transnational students. Could you, here. Okay. They were spread out in the city, as Amparo said in the previous presentation. Therefore, we decided to design a probabilistic sample and selected 86 middle schools among those with 2 or more transnational students according to administrative records. And within schools, we selected transnational students and a control group. Finally, our sample had more than 1,000 students. Near half of them were transnational. Well, what did we find? 68% of transnational students were US citizens, and 22% of those that are non-transnational. Most of them were born in California, and 14% in other states of the US. And the remaining 32 were born in Baja California and other Mexican states. As you see, our relationship with California is obvious. And 65% of transnational students said they want to return to the US. Another 14% said they want to work in the US but live in Mexico. They want to be commuters in the future. Why did these adolescents migrate to Mexico? 2 out of 10 children have parents who were deported, and 1 out of 10 returned because of not having documents to live in the US. Though parental jobs was the main reason, and we think that it may be also a product of the shrinkage of employment opportunities for undocumented migrants in the US. In this slide, we have here the years since the arrival to Mexico, and as you can see, we collected information on recent migration, and that was the goal, to know what was happening with those recent migrants to the metropolitan area of Tijuana. A quarter of the students arrived up to 1 year before the survey, or a little bit more, 27%. And I have to say that about 16% had one of their parents living in the US, and 20% had siblings in the US. So they maintain their transnational ties links. About their educational outcomes, because that was our goal. We found that 18% of transnational students temporarily drop out or repeated a grade, compared to 8% of non-transnational students. Though there was an improvement of in the group of the recent migrants, it still is higher than compared to the control group. Why did they have these continuous trajectories? Well, mainly because lack of school access or lack of documents to get enrolled. Also because they migrated at the middle of the school year. They had family problems, difficulties with Spanish, basically with reading and writing, and other reasons, and they said like lack of money. Apostille and official translation are not required anymore in Mexican schools, but a more extensive campaign to inform these changes at the school level are necessary. Also, lower class transnational students need scholarships to continue their education. What happens in classrooms? About 30% of transnational students barely receive support of teachers for their educational inclusion. Lower strata children are those that receive less support since they attend schools of lower quality. Therefore, there is need of more teacher training on inclusion strategies for transnational students at every school. Students continue to be invisible at many classrooms, and they need support to adapt to a new school environment and curricula and to learn the new language. A welcoming program, as well as a program to follow up vulnerable transnational students are needed at the school level. Well, one of the questions we asked was if students like school. Here we display the percentage by years since arrival to Mexico. The percentage of transnational students who don't like school or like it very little was about 25% of those who arrived a year before the survey. And this percentage declines with time. Transnational students go through an adjustment time, and it seems that the more adjusted they were to American schools, more difficult is to adapt to Mexican schools. Why do transnational students not like Mexican schools? That was our question. This was correlated with low Spanish proficiency. It was a self-report, lack of social connections at school, mainly with teachers, and the perception of a low quality of teaching. We have ongoing research on this topic, trying to understand these children's attitudes towards school. What should we do to help them with their adaptation? 30 transnational students participated in a workshop in March where we asked them if they were principals, what they would do to improve their own situation. And their opinions are more relevant than anything I could say. They asked for extracurricular Spanish classes. They said, please help us with Spanish. So this is excellent. It's excellent that you are doing that with teachers. Also, they asked for bilingual tutors, the students of other educational levels and other transnational students who write and read well in Spanish. They asked for bilingual teachers. They said, please, we need teachers who are fluent in English in Mexico. In addition, they want help to develop their English skills, not to lose them. English by levels, more hours, and an active role in English courses, since they are more advanced than their teachers. Finally, in the session, they asked for a program to facilitate social connections with professors and other classmates who speak English. Well, this was the survey, the team at COLEF and PROVEM that we did the survey together, and hope that together continue doing interventions at the short, medium, and long terms at school to make significant changes in the life of transnational students. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. We will now continue with our speakers from California. First up is Dr. Patricia Gándara. Dr. Gándara is a research professor at UCLA, only the best school in the world, and Director of Education for the University of California, Mexico Initiative. Dr. Gándara is an elected fellow of the American Educational Research Association and the National Academy of Education. In 2011, she was appointed to President Obama's Commission on Educational Excellence for Hispanics. She is currently working on a new volume on the students we share. Dr. Gándara, welcome, and you have 10 minutes.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much to all of you for being here and for caring about this issue, which we've cared about so deeply for so long. It's wonderful to see it reflected right here in Sacramento. So I come to you today as the Director of Education on behalf of the University of California, Mexico Initiative. We want to make that very clear because this has driven a lot of what you're hearing about today. My task was to give you a short history of how we got here today, why this is critically important. I'm going to do a little tiny detour about what we know about the effects of immigration enforcement on our schools, and then end with a couple of suggestions about what we might do. I believe you have copies of my presentation because I did not want to crush your eyes with all kinds of data on the screen, but you can refer to it later. The very first of the Students We Share conferences was actually held in 2010 in Mexico City, but this particular conference involved mostly scholars from Mexico and from the United States. It was a very successful conference as far as it went. And there were some things that we found as a result of it that have spurred us on since then. I think one of the things is, well, let me say that across middle and high school, 6% of our immigrant students, those who are still considered to be English learners here in California, were able to pass the math test for the state this last year, 6%. That's compared to about 40% of non-immigrant students. And here I'm referring to those who are still considered English learners. And although we've made great strides in high school graduation, still 1 out of 5 of our Latino students who are overwhelmingly Mexican origin do not finish high school with their classmates. Importantly, I want to focus on a particular statistic that is very troubling to me, and that is that still today, less than 15% of Latinos in California have completed a college degree by the time they are 29 years old. What's really important about this is that's compared to 46% for white students and 58% for Asian students. This leaves our students non-competitive in this labor market. A glaring reason for that is the fact that they are clustered together with other poor children in the lowest performing schools in our state, and we need to do something about that. I've provided some data for you there. I'm not going to bore you with the details now, but I would appreciate you looking at that. So given the situation that we had and that we continue to have since the 2010 conference, the second Students We Share conference took place in 2016 under the auspices of the University of California, Mexico Initiative. But this time we were a little smarter. This time we included both California and Mexican educators, those of you who were there, and heads of Mexican and California education agencies. So many of those people are here in the room today. One of the outstanding findings of that particular conference is that we're now looking at not just Mexican origin children, students in California, but we are looking at hundreds of thousands of US citizen students who are attempting to integrate themselves into the Mexican school system, and oftentimes not very successfully. In spite of the esfuerzos, the efforts that Mexico has made that Benito detailed, Still, we find that educated in English only, these students find difficulty integrating into schools in Spanish because there are no Spanish as a second language classes. They are being unfamiliar with the Mexican education system. These students feel lost, and teachers oftentimes label them as being poor students or intellectually unfit. And at the level of high school, there are not enough seats oftentimes for these students to join in schooling, and they are left behind. In the spring of 2017, following on the 2016 conference, we had the summit between Deputy Superintendent Torlakson and Secretary of Education Aurelio Nuño, which is resulting in today's signing of the MOU. So let me say a couple words about why this is so important that we're here today. The region that extends from Los Angeles through Tijuana, a region that we call La Santi, Los Angeles, San Diego, Tijuana. Yet 3 days ago was the 11th largest economy in the world. We just found out that California is now the 5th largest economy in the world, and so I suspect that La Santi has become an even bigger powerhouse economically. It is a major driver of the economies of California, the economy of the United States, and of Mexico. And the reality is that California and Mexico, as we have mentioned, are highly interdependent, especially at this frontier, and their fortunes are inexorably linked. But this enormous juggernaut is at risk unless both nations, both California and the US, and in this case California and Mexico, are able to raise the education level for the region. And this will require considerable cross-border effort. On the Mexican side, barely half of students are completing high school. And last year, 12,000 students in the Tijuana area were left without a seat at a high school. So, on the US side, the Public Policy Institute of California recently projected that by 2030, and that is 12 years from now, not very long, California will need more than 1 million college degrees that it is now producing. A major challenge is that the population of the region, of this region, is majority Mexican, the group with the lowest college completion rates by far. So unless the education of Mexican origin population on both sides of the border is significantly increased over this generation, the economy of La Santi is likely to falter. It's urgent. We just completed Alexis, how much time do I have? 2 minutes, okay. We've just completed a study of the impact of immigration enforcement on the nation's schools with a particular oversampling in the region of La Santi. What we found was that 80% of almost 1,300 educators from the region reported that their immigrant students were exhibiting emotional problems, and between a half and 2/3 of educators reported an academic decline among the immigrant students. Even high-achieving students are reported to be giving up on school because their futures are so uncertain, and they saw college now out of their reach. Nearly 90% of educators in this survey agreed that schools need to hold forums for immigrant parents to answer their questions and provide referrals for legal help and social services, but only 40% were doing so. So I have highlighted several things here. What I want to end on is a couple of suggestions about what we might do. Senator Lara headed up legislation last fall, SB 257, that allows students from who have come from California but are currently in Baja California to cross over and to attend a district school in California. This is really important legislation, but evidently the schools don't yet even understand or know about it. We need to push that. We also, I think, need to expand beyond that to include online curricula that can be supervised in Baja California and accredited in California schools, like the Prepa Online, to extend this possibility to more students. Secondly, we need to legislate and provide funding so that the schools with immigrant students can provide informational forums for their immigrant parents using a PK type of model. I'll discuss that more later because I know I'm out of time. And third, before 2002, with No Child Left Behind, the federal government provided money for us to train people, to train bilingual teachers across the nation. They stopped funding that. We have been, since that time, retiring out the people we have who can train these teachers, and we need some help from the California legislature to be able to provide some fellowships so that we can begin to build that infrastructure once again in our higher education institutions to prepare these teachers. I'll end there. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gandara. Our next speaker is Melissa Floca. She is Assistant Director of the University of California Center for U.S.-Mexico Studies. Ms. Floca focuses on issues of U.S.-Mexico trade and regional competitiveness. Before joining UC San Diego, she worked at the Mexico City-based office of McKinsey & Company, where she served clients on projects related to financial inclusion, public health, and low-income housing. She holds a degree in political science and economics from Johns Hopkins University, where she also earned a graduate degree in international relations from the School of Advanced International Studies. In addition, she holds an MBA from Columbia Business School. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today. When I moved to San Diego in 2013, I didn't know much at all about the border region, but I quickly learned that San Diego and Tijuana are part of a dynamic cross-border economy. When goods and capital flow back and forth between Southern California and Baja California, it is a source of economic competitiveness. More than a dozen Fortune 500 companies are heavily invested in the cross-border advanced manufacturing in regional industries like med devices, automotive, software development, and aerospace. But it isn't just goods and capital that move around in our region. People move too. 1 in 4 Mexican immigrants to the US live within a 150-mile radius of my office at UCSD. And of course, when those immigrants return to Mexico, as we've heard today, they often take their US-born children with them. Of the estimated 500,000 US-born school-age youth in Mexico, 1 in 10 are in Baja California. This cohort of binational, bicultural young people represents an untapped resource for both countries, but currently the pressures of migration often prevent them from realizing their full potential. Over the last 3 years, the UC Mexico Initiative has supported the Mexican Migration Field Research Program at UCSD to engage in research as part of the Students That We Share initiative. Our work focuses on better understanding the challenges and opportunities that binational young people face along their pathway to adulthood. 100 students from UCSD and 2 universities in Tijuana, la Universidad Autónoma de Baja California, UABC, and el Colegio de la Frontera Norte, el COLEF, have participated and worked together via a class for students who want an in-depth, hands-on research experience focused on international migration. 8 of our students are here with us today. Raise your hands, guys. Okay, there they are. With their help and the support of our colleagues at the Civil Rights Project at UCLA, we visited over 300 classrooms. That's boots on the ground. We've gone to 10th, 11th, and 12th grade classrooms, 9th grade classrooms as well, in San Diego and Tijuana to conduct surveys and focus groups to understand how migration and binational ties impact the educational and professional trajectories of our students. And so through surveying 8,500 young people, we've learned a lot about those cross-border ties. In the 2 districts where we work, in San Diego Unified and Sweetwater, 1 in 5 students report having lived or studied in Mexico. And in Tijuana, 1 in 10 students report having lived or studied in the US. So many of these young people see themselves as members of both countries, regardless of their country of birth. Even country of residence is a fluid concept for these youth who travel back and forth daily or weekly, or who have moved from one country to another multiple times. The cross-border cultural fluency of these young people make them a tremendous asset to the region in terms of human capital. But when our education systems are not prepared to support them as they move from one country to another, it's easy for them to slip through the cracks, and many of them are slipping through the cracks. As a result, compared to their peers without migration experience, these students report relatively lower educational aspirations and expectations. They have less hope about their future and their ability to find good jobs in either country. So to prepare for this hearing, I went back to my notes from the first trip that Patricia Gandra and I took together to Tijuana in 2015. We sat down to talk to a young woman and her mom. The girl's parents had been living in California without papers, but she and her brother were born in San Diego. And when her father was deported, the whole family left with him because her mother could not support them on her own in the US. They moved to Tijuana so that the children could stay close to their friends and family in San Diego. She was in middle school, he was in high school, he was at San Ysidro High, playing soccer, making good grades. But it was a struggle to get their children into school in Tijuana. Her brother ended up dropping out and returning to San Diego to find work in a restaurant without a high school degree. She had trouble adjusting, but eventually she started doing well in school in Tijuana. Her mom wanted her to go back to San Diego and live with her aunt and finish high school in the US, but she said she didn't really remember how to speak English very well anymore, and she didn't want to go through the whole process of switching schools again. She told us through tears, I think Patricia and I had some tears in our eyes at that point as well, "I don't really fit in here, and now I don't fit in there anymore either." Tens of thousands, perhaps more than 100,000 children like her have left California classrooms, and they're trying to find their way in Mexico. The challenge is huge, but our research has shown that the cross-border region offers a laboratory for innovation because of the proximity between the two countries. I can pop down to Yara Amparo's office, she can come up to UCSD, and this reduces some of the challenges of gathering data and prototyping and testing the feasibility of new programs to support cross-border youth. For example, as you heard about today, we're now working on replicating California's seal of biliteracy in Baja California. We're also working with our school districts to create pathways and curriculum in cross-border business. We have business, but we don't have cross-border business. Also in bilingual education, pathways that are tailored to the skills of these binational youth. And we're working with cross-border companies because we have a lot of them and they're heavily invested in the region and they need talent. So we're working with them to increase the STEM talent pipeline that they need. California and Mexico cooperate on so many cross-border challenges. We plan and build border crossing infrastructure together. We have laws, institutions, public-private cooperation, investment, and we institutionalize cooperation in critical areas like public health and trade. We don't have frameworks for that kind of cooperation or investment when it comes to education and workforce development. We need to create those frameworks because although there are lots of good efforts, the scale and scope of this challenge far, far supersedes any of those efforts that exist today. And it's urgent that we give an institution or a department within the public sector in California the mandate to support these binational youth in charting a successful pathway to adulthood. We have to give them tools and resources to do that as well. We've heard from the Mexican consulates about the services that they offer, their education windows, their binational education week. We need to do that for our California citizens in Mexico as well. We have 10 Mexican consulates in California, and yes, we have a US consulate in Tijuana, but is it reasonable to expect a family that's been recently deported to go there to the consulate to seek services for their US-born children? California should have a physical presence, a permanent physical presence in Baja California at least, where we can provide support and we can advocate for our state's young people. Raising the educational attainment of cross-border youth will require international cooperation, lots and lots of boots on the ground. There has to be coordination between local stakeholders and the public and private sector. If we were to make $10 million available to incentivize cross-border and cross-sector collaboration, our investment would pay for itself if we are able to prevent just 40 students from dropping out of high school. Just 40. The cost of letting students fail is that high. For each student who doesn't graduate from high school in this country, that costs $250,000 in lost wages, over $60,000 in lost tax revenue. So these families without high school education, there's going to be a long-term cost to our society because we haven't provided them the services that they need to create pathways to successful adulthood. We'll see that in diminished economic competitiveness. We'll see that in diminished civic engagement. And we don't have easy answers on how to support these young people. We don't have things that are simple that we can do. So we also need to invest in finding innovative solutions and piloting new ideas. We have to test impact, check for cost effectiveness, and scale what works. We need a parallel set of policies that mirror the things that we do in trade, that mirror the things that we do when we think about capital, a parallel set of policies that support educational pathways for young people and that warrant a similar commitment, if only because of the clear economic benefit of increasing educational attainment in both countries.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson.
Thank you.
Our second panel will focus on educating trans-border students for the 21st century workforce. Going beyond dual degree and foreign exchange programs by creating opportunities for bilingual, bicultural students. I once heard a statistic that if you add up the economies of all the states that along the border between U.S. and Mexico, that it would make up the third largest economy in the world. And it was interesting that Dr. Gamera brought up the statistics of the Lasanti region. What was the rank it would?
It was 11th 2 days ago. Today it is surely 9th.
The 11th largest economy, just in a very, very small corridor.
Senator, it is bigger than the economy of Russia. It is bigger than the economy of Spain.
Bigger than the economy of Mexico, bigger than the economy of Russia, Spain, and probably even India as well, that has 1.2 billion people. And that is just a mind-blowing statistic that puts something into perspective when you start quantifying what that really means. And that, you know, it's, when you think of California having the 5th largest economy and Mexico having the 15th, there's just so much opportunity there that we need to build on. And that partnership could mean so much more to our respective regions when we talk about making that policy that creates kind of a seamless transition in so many areas of trade and education and things that would really help our respective societies. So thank you for those comments. Our next speakers will provide more specific examples on the opportunities that can be created for bilingual and bicultural students. Our first speaker is Kristen Soares. She's the president of the Association of Independent California Colleges and Universities. Ms. Soares is representing the chief executives of California's 75-plus private nonprofit colleges and universities on issues of public policy. Ms. Soares has an extensive background in higher education administration, policy development, and governmental affairs. She recently served as the Senior Associate Vice President for Government Relations and Civic Engagement at the University of Southern California, where she provided strategic direction and leadership for USC's government relations offices in Los Angeles, Sacramento, and Washington, D.C. Ms. Soares holds a bachelor's degree in public administration from the University of Southern California. welcome Ms. Soares. And if you read Soares in Spanish, it's Suarez. Maybe a little Latino there. You have 10 minutes. And if I can just welcome Senator Stern and Assemblymember Monique Limon to our discussion here. Thank you for being here. Ms. Soares?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Hueso and members of the committee. Thank you for having this important discussion today and including the work of California's independent institutions. Today, California's private nonprofit colleges reflect the rich diversity of California, and we enroll nearly 22% of undergraduate students across the state. That's nearly 187,000 students. The sector also enrolls 56% of graduate students. That's about 152,000 students. That's more than UC and CSU combined, and it makes us the leader in producing the state's advanced workforce and the next generation of instructors in our classrooms and our colleges. Today, our schools of education prepare 43% of California's teacher workforce annually. We certainly know and understand our important role to prepare the next generation of educators who need to be culturally aware, culturally serving, and culturally sensitive. There is a great synergy between the universities in Mexico and the ones here in California, and a strong relationship with Mexican Higher Education Association, FEMPES, which is the AICCU equivalent in Mexico, and UNUES. I know Dr. Guillermo Hernandez well, who you will hear from next, and I'm honored to be on this panel and the work we have done together. He and I lead organizations and the institutions we represent that all share a deep commitment to cross-national, cross-cultural, and binational educational opportunities. In a world that continues to shrink and where borders and walls continue to crumble because of social media and internet and global trade, it is vital now more than ever that these opportunities continue to exist and be strengthened. AICCU has long collaborated with Mexican private higher education institutions and count many as partners. This relationship fosters unique programming and research opportunities. The myriad of initiatives between AICCU institutions and our Mexican counterparts include faculty research exchanges, graduate student research exchanges, and dual degree program offerings. These campus-based programs are fundamental to developing the relations that foster greater cultural and educational exchanges, but also to prepare a student, whether from Mexico, California, Canada, or somewhere else, to be transnational, multicultural, and multilingual. Transnational students, as we've heard today, face challenges that taken together are unique to them. Not truly feeling at home in either country, sometimes feeling alienated from both communities, having to take time away from their studies to travel back and forth for familiar obligations. At the same time, these students are well positioned, if given the proper support, to succeed in a globalized world because they have the qualities needed to do so. Bilingual or multilingual, multicultural, and possessing sensitivity to different cultures. These are the generation of students that we need to be our next generation of leaders. Let me give you examples of student-centered programs. The University of San Francisco has a joint degree program with the Universidad Iberoamericana Puebla on migration studies, and also various immersion programs such as the one through USF's School of Nursing, where students learn about a diverse array of healthcare systems, access, and outcomes. Also gaining a global perspective that will enhance their professional practice. In addition, the university provides learning opportunities for students through a variety of programs. Now, campus also supports a student-led group that works to educate their fellow students on the unique challenges and opportunities of migrant populations. The University of Southern California has multiple programs and is in the Mexico and has many partners with students from both sides. I'm proud to say that they've recently created a new degree program where students will study in Los Angeles and will study in Mexico. They will cross the border. The University of San Diego, near your district, Chair Hueso, offers a master's in finance with the Tecnológico de Monterrey, a university that is well known for developing innovative and entrepreneurial business leaders. They recently started the Trans-Border Institute, a think tank to look at solutions to restore humanity to debates about migration, considering the sides of both. We also hope that this institute will provide further academic opportunities for students, faculty, and community leaders, providing more opportunities for individuals to further understand binational issues. I think what's been emphasized here today is that the relationships are critical between institutions, between the countries, between agencies. You will see our commitment to that work continue. I think you'll hear more about it from Dr. Hernandez. I'm going to stop there, so thank you very much for including us.
Thank you for being here. It means a lot. Our next speaker is Dr. Guillermo Hernandez. He is currently the General Director of Strategic Partnerships at the National Association of Universities and Higher Education Institutions. He has more than 30 years of international experience in research and development in North America, Latin America, Europe, Israel, China, and Japan. Dr. Hernandez has a master's degree in metallurgy and material sciences from UNAM and holds a PhD from the Université de Technologie de Compiègne, France. And bienvenue, Dr. Hernandez.
Merci beaucoup. Well, before all, thank you so much, Senator Ben Hueso, for the kind invitation. Great to see you again. And also, I would like to thank the senators and representatives here for being with us. Dr. Benito Miron, thank you very much for being with us. And I also thank the audience for being with us, and also to Kristen from AICCU and Cindy from the UC system. I will talk about our association and what we are doing in the region, and specifically in California. So, well, as a context, this is the Mexican higher education system. So we have 3.7 million of students at the bachelor's level, and more than 300,000 students in graduate studies, and 175,000 in technical education. I am sure Dr. Benito Miron could correct me. But, you know, those are not only numbers. I mean, we are really creating our workforce. And here we will be talking about a global workforce, North American workforce in all the fields. I mean, technical workforce, professional workforce, business workforce, scientific workforce, and of course, political workforce, for the benefit not only for Mexico, but also for North America in this case. That's our vision, and I think shared with our counterparts in the US and also in California. So ANUYES is the National Association of Higher Education Institutions. We gather the best in 191 institutions in Mexico, public institutions, private institutions, and research centers, where more than 90% of the total research and development is performed in our country. If I may synthesize what we do, I would say two things. One is academic quality, international standards for our students and also institutions. And again, it's about increasing and improving the competitiveness of our country. And number two, probably the most important, is regional development. That means that we are aligned to the main priorities for the different states in our country, but also aligned to the priorities of our regions and to the national strategic plan. We also work internationally. I mean, of course, We are part of North America, which is very important for us, part of Latin America. So, and also we work with Europe and Asia, and always around strategic areas for our nations. Now, North America, I mean, I could say many things about North America and Mexico, but I would like to retake the document released by the US Department of State, the document released in May 2015, and again in January 2017, about the US-Mexico relations. It is very interesting, but I would like to say two things. One, North America is still the most, or one of the most competitive regions in the world. And the border, the famous US-Mexican border, composed by 10 states, 4 in the US, 6 in Mexico, gathers a community of around 100 million of people, and it is the 4th economy in the world. The 4th economy in the world, la cuarta economía del mundo. So, of course, we have challenges, but most of all, opportunities. Of course, we have to secure the border, but we have to ease the border. I think it's a great opportunity, and I can share with you that our institutions are working with the border institutions in the US around, opportunities for the US-Mexico border. Well, before that, so California is crucial for Mexico for many reasons that have been said here. And I can tell you that the cooperation between the US and Mexico as far as higher education was reinforced in 2013 when our governments signed an agreement, and I am talking about the 100,000 strong here in the US and the FOBESI initiative in Mexico. So we reinforced the cooperation with the US and of course with California. I will just mention 4 projects that we are working together here. One, I would mention the Step to College. You know, this is an amazing university fair promoted by our General Consulate here in Sacramento, where California universities and Mexican universities are together and propose higher education services for our common students. So that's very interesting. The other one, we have a very nice cooperation with the UC system that exists since many years ago, but has been reinforced. Recently, we signed an agreement with the system, and since then, we have been doing more joint research. I have to tell you that there is an agreement between CONACYT, which is the National Science Foundation, the equivalent in Mexico, and the UC system. It is called the UC Mexus for financing relevant and pertinent research. We have been working on student mobility, visiting professor program. Here you have some of our institutions that are working closely with the UC system. And if I may, I would like to share that this coming August, there will be a visit from the UC Davis chancellor, and they will be visiting El Bajío states. Why? Because they will be working on the priorities, for the UC Davis University and El Bajío. They are going to be received officially by the governors, and they will be working with the economic development and education sectors in Mexico. We also have, as Kristen Soares said, a very nice relationship with AICCU for more than 30 years. We have been working on student mobility, visiting professor program, joint research, but also presidents and rector bilateral meetings. We know that many presidents from AICCU have visited Mexico and vice versa. We have been coming here for the president's annual retreats. It was my case. I came at least for 7 years in a row to those meetings, and since then the cooperation was reinforced. And the last one is interesting because in conjunction with AICCU and USC and the California Capitol, we have been working on these newly Mexican elected officials in order they can come here, either governors or mayors, in order to work their strategic plan to connect to California and to do things together. I know that the governor of Aguascalientes was here a year ago. He took office the month after he came here. Finally, Puentes. Puentes is a very nice program launched between ANUYES, Secretaría de Educación Pública, and our Ministry of Foreign Affairs for students who are in risk to be deported, so that we can help them to be placed in universities in Mexico, maybe where they belong or they have family and roots. So yeah, just to finish, I would like to say that the cooperation with California has always been and will be crucial and definitive for Mexico. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our final speaker today is Cindy Giorgio. Ms. Giorgio is director of the University of California Mexico Initiative with oversight of research, outreach, and academic mobility programs between the University of California and partners in Mexico. In this capacity, Ms. Giorgio has helped to forge relationships with officials from academia, government, and the private sector in Mexico. Previously, she served at UC Riverside for more than 35 years. Wow. And she served as the Assistant Dean for Programs and Development at UCR's College of Natural and Agricultural Sciences. Welcome. We're very honored to have you here.
Thank you. And thank you, members of the Select Committee, for shining a light on this important topic. I think it's very fitting that today is also National Teachers Appreciation Day. And I think we'll know we've succeeded when we can celebrate Binational Teachers Appreciation Day. So our focus today has been on the students we share. But Mexico and California share so much more: history, traditions, culture, people, the environment, resources. Recognizing this, UC President Janet Napolitano founded the UC Mexico Initiative in January 2014. Its mission is to harness the research, teaching, and outreach prowess of UC, working together with our partners in Mexico to address issues of mutual concern. That foresight has led to the remarkable work that you heard about earlier, as well as important advances in energy, the environment, and health. Students are involved in each of these efforts, gaining valuable experience through hands-on research, as well as our mobility efforts and long-standing programs such as UC Mexis and Education Abroad. As an example of some of our newer initiatives, UC is beginning year 2 of Visit Mexico, an 8-week summer research internship program in which students work in the laboratories of faculty mentors, conducting hands-on research and attending seminars to help them prepare for graduate studies. This summer, the Davis, Merced, Riverside, and San Diego campuses will host 27 Mexican students. The U.S.-Mexico Commission for Education and Cultural Exchange, or COMEXIS, is partnering with UC to make this possible. Similarly, UC San Diego's Enlace program pairs college and high school students from either side of the border for a 7-week summer research experience in the STEM fields. The program has been so successful that this year it will see 200 students. In the coming year, Enlace will expand to the Riverside and Irvine campuses. The UC Mexico Initiative and COMEXIS have also partnered on a binational internship program piloted last year at UC Berkeley. This summer, UC Irvine will begin a program modeled after Berkeley's. In addition, in the fall, they will develop an extension-based internship program in conjunction with the U.S. Embassy. In cooperation with the Mexican Ministry of Health, the initiative developed an innovative educational approach for health professionals, recently completing the first cohort of online certificate programs in health management. A second certificate program focused on regulatory health sciences has just begun. We are also in the process of designing a health-specific study abroad program for UC students in Mexico, which will be a hybrid between online education and on-site study. In the area of energy, UC has been awarded $1.3 million from SENER, Mexico's Ministry of Energy, for research relating to building energy efficiency. These projects are being carried out by faculty, postdocs, and graduate students at UC Davis and Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory in conjunction with partners in Mexico. In addition, a highly successful energy postdoctoral program has brought 8 Mexican scientists to UC to date, and this week we will launch a fellows program for energy faculty at UC and UNAM. In terms of the environment, a collaboration by 96 researchers, about half UC faculty, postdocs, and graduate students, and the remainder from institutions in Mexico, resulted in a paper entitled Harnessing Cross-Border Resources to Confront Climate Change. It was published in the Environmental Science and Policy Journal in March and is also available online through our UC eScholarship website. As a direct outgrowth of the students we share, UC formed a bilateral higher education task force charged with improving articulation and transfer of students between institutions of higher education in California and Mexico. A primary impetus was to help undocumented students, including DACA and AB 540, to complete their degrees if they are returned to Mexico either voluntarily or involuntarily. We are now working with ANUYES, UNAM, Tec de Monterrey, and others to develop pathways for these students. The UC Mexico initiative has data to show for our efforts. Since 2013, we increased academic mobility between UC and Mexico by 37%. This includes traditional education abroad programs, as well as faculty-led summer courses and the programs I described earlier. In terms of research, for every dollar invested by the university, we have leveraged an additional $5 from federal, state, and private sources, both in the US and in Mexico. Some look at Mexico today and see uncertainty. We see opportunity. The UC Mexico initiative will continue to pursue our mission of working with our partners in Mexico to address the many issues, challenges, and yes, the students that we share. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice way to close. Very nice way to close. And, you know, I was on a trip in 2010, it was actually 2011, that visited the House of UC in Mexico City. And at that time, we were being informed that the UC was taking action to close it down. And on that trip, former Speaker John Perez, Ricardo Lara, and I worked with Janet Napolitano and UC to not only keep it open, but develop a program. And it's really nice to hear that that's going very well. In our last visit to the House, we found a different state of affairs there. A very vibrant location with activity and exchanges and this wonderful educational debate. And you know, we have a lot to thank the UC system for reaching out, and there's much to be gained by that partnership, and I think it's going to be a wonderful thing for the people of our state. I want to open up to any comments or questions that the committee members may have. At this time, for the panelists are still here. If you wish to ask any questions or make any comments, anybody in particular? Senator Stern.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just want to thank you for inviting me to join this select committee and for the education you've been bestowing on me in our trips to that border region. Growing up in Southern California, you know it's part of your life, but when you actually dig in and realize all the untapped wealth we've got, both in terms of economic capital, but also human capital, I think we're still leaving a lot on the table. So I just wanted to make a comment, mostly just that I appreciate the leadership from the UC and the independent universities and from the universities on the other side of the border. You know, this is new to me. I didn't know about this huge population of students we share and the impacts of this, you know, our ever changing and swirling federal immigration policy and the volatility that brings in young people's lives, and not just dreamers who are here, but people, American citizens who are on the other side of the border too. We can't promise rectification of that volatility here, but I think we, through your leadership and Latino Caucus and a lot of the legislation we've been moving, but also through getting our state behind this sort of joint partnership, I think at least there's some comfort we can bring and start to show those high school students who are in my backyard who are afraid to go to school some days and they're looking over their shoulder constantly. We've got to get past fear and embrace this opportunity. So I see huge potential and just appreciate you bringing me into the fold here.
Thank you. Thank you. We're very honored to have you here. Thank you for your participation. Senator Allen.
I actually wanted to ask Dr. Adams a little bit about, what sort of challenges you've had or anything we ought to know about a kind of cross-curricular cooperation with Mexican education authorities that we may not know about or that you want us to know about.
I think the key there is we've been trying to expand our binational program in terms of bringing more teachers from Mexico into California to help with the bilingual teacher shortage. And so it hasn't been really an issue of cooperation or understanding. It's just that the department itself has various legal obligations to undertake when it does do this, because it is a directly sponsored program where we have an agreement with the Mexican government. So our main shortage is that we cannot delegate this authority down to the districts. It has to be to the department itself, and we simply need more resources, specifically staff who can then monitor these cases, because anything that happens with these teachers who come here, they're our direct responsibility. So in that sense, we just need some more staff to actually do that. We have a lot of great willingness on educators in Mexico willing to come here. I think we could also open up a greater program of exchange between the two, Mexico and California, to then create more cross-curricular. I think the language issues and curriculum issues are less than we think. We now have curriculum that is specifically oriented around the Common Core standards in Spanish, which actually really are standards that you could really say are something you would find in almost any country in terms of the ability to be a literate person in both languages. So, I mean, it's more of a question of resources, and I definitely have a boss who's willing to expand it, and it's more of getting the rest of the state behind this.
Okay, that's helpful, and I'd love to talk to you more about what we can do on our side. Is there anyone on the Mexican side who'd like to comment on this? I mean, your sense of the state of curricular cooperation, teacher transfer, et cetera?
I agree on what it has been said here, but I think we could also improve our cooperation and the professional development of teachers. I think it's a great horizon for cooperation between Mexico and California. We're trying to also improve the way in which we share information of the students we share, so that once a student is traced to be in Mexico or in the United States, we can share the educational background from one side to the other, so that we can keep track on the progress of our students from both sides of the country. So that would help a lot, I think, the educational system on both sides. Thank you.
I wonder how the data sharing will work on that.
Well, the chief feature there is student confidentiality.
Yeah.
And then you have to think about what districts also have themselves. But it's not something that we can't overcome. It's
Right.
more of making sure that the confidentiality is under FERPA is maintained. I think the other thing to keep in mind in all this is the professional learning opportunities that are there. If you look at our mathematics standards and our science standards. They're actually more based in a broader concept of science and math that you would find throughout the world than you would have, say, in the past. So in that sense, we are on a point of probably getting into greater areas of cooperation, not just simply language, but science and math.
Thank you. And in that spirit, I mean, later on today at our California-Mexico Advocacy Day, we're going to be witnessing the signing of a MOU between Mexico and California on educational cooperation, and that'll get to some of those issues of information sharing. There are quite many areas in which there'll be greater cooperation than we have now, and that's a move in the right direction. And that's kind of a statement of what we stand for and what our values are, and what we believe would be a great thing to do for our state. And it's just backed up by years and years of experience, and not just political jargon that we tend to see today. You know, it's interesting that we have really pressing issues along our border, and our president has not visited California to meet with elected leaders here in his year and a half in office, and that is unprecedented in the history of our state, no matter who's been in office. Special consideration is given to California, given our importance to this country, now the 5th largest economy. Then again, if the president did visit, we might drop back to 6th or 7th, I don't know. But, you know, it is important to have an advocate in Washington, and unfortunately, we don't have that, but we're plugging away. We're moving forward. We are our own state, our own country, and we're the California Republic, and we're moving forward with or without Washington. So I want to thank all of you for supporting the efforts of this committee again. Thank you very much. Thank you to the members of the Select Committee in particular for your participation, and our special guests from the Assembly, and also to the Department of Education and the Consul General of Mexico, and special appreciation to the speakers and guests who traveled to be here, and to all our partners, the Mexican Ministry of Education, the State of Baja California, the California Association for Bilingual Education, the Colegio de la Frontera Norte, the University of California, Los Angeles, the San Diego Center for U.S.-Mexico Studies, and the UC Mexico Initiative, AICCU, ANUIES, former Senator Denise Moreno-Cheney, thank you very much, and to the office of Governor Jerry Brown, and of course, my wonderful staff, Yolanda, Alexis, Aaron, and Dylan Jaff is here with us as well. I also want to invite everyone, I know all of you are on your way to the California-Mexico Advocacy Day celebration right shortly after we adjourn here from 5 to 7. It's going to be at the Leland Stanford Mansion from 5 to 7. We invite you all to join us and witness the signing of this very important MOU between the state of California and Mexico. Thank you very much and have a wonderful day, and I'll see you later on in a little bit.